It was a lifeless night in Samarkand. The city was silent, submerged in darkness, with every soul fast asleep. All, except for one man, who stepped out of his home and walked alone through the night. He moved steadily, not looking left or right until he reached the governor's palace. He cast upon it a burning glare. Had his eyes held fire, the palace would have been engulfed in flames. Without pause he continued on, leaving the city behind and venturing into the forest. The only sounds were those of insects and wild beasts, yet fear did not reach him. His purpose consumed his thoughts. So great was the mission he bore, so heavy the risk, that the dread of the dark or the howls of creatures did not deter him. Eventually he reached the gates of Samarkand's ancient temple. There, standing before a large stone at the entrance, he hesitated. Stories from childhood whispered in his ears, tales of hidden powers, of an unseen world within the temple that only the high priests could access. Though he had faced warriors in battle and never flinched, now his heart trembled. As he stood frozen, a voice suddenly called to him, "Follow me." Startled, his heart sank. He turned and obeyed the temple's guard who had come to receive him. Together, they walked through corridors lit by eerie blue lanterns, past grotesque statues of temple gods. Fear settled deeper into his bones. At last they arrived at a stone-carved chamber where the high priest sat, the unseen rulers of Samarkand, feared and obeyed by all. One priest spoke of Samarkand's lost glory, of how Muslim forces had arrived and overthrown their rule. Another addressed the man directly, saying, "We have summoned you for a sacred task. We've heard of the Muslim king in Damascus, a man known for his justice. You shall go to him, present our grievance, and see what he does. We chose you because you know Arabic and you're bold. Will you go?" The man replied, "Yes, go with the blessings of the gods," they said. He departed, filled with pride. He wasn't just a warrior now. He had been entrusted with the greatest mission in Samarkand. Secretly, he had longed for a chance to fight the Muslims and drive them out. Now, he had a chance to act. His journey took him from Samarkand to Bukhara, then to Balkh, onward to Herat, then to Qazwin, onto Mosul, to Aleppo, and finally to Damascus. Each city, grander than the last, stirred awe in him. As he approached Damascus, the heart of the Muslim empire, he was struck by its beauty and order, and honestly by fear. How could a stranger like him meet a caliph? But then, he saw a majestic building and assumed it must be the palace. Yet people came and went freely, no guards, no checks. Curious, he entered. Inside he found a vast courtyard paved with white marble, a fountain, and a grand hall filled with lamps hanging from silver chains. It was, well, truly awe-inspiring.
Wandering within, a man approached and asked him who he was. Instinctively, the Samarkandi told him everything: his journey, his purpose, and his hope to meet the caliph. He expected the man to be shocked, but instead, he calmly asked, "Would you like me to show you his house?" The man pointed to a modest door nearby. Surprised, the traveler said, "Isn't this the caliph's palace?" The man smiled. "No, this is God's house. This is a mosque. Have you prayed before?" "No," he replied. "What is your faith?" "The temple priests of Samarkand. And what do they believe?" "I don't really know," he admitted. "Do their gods respond to you when you pray? Do they heal when you're sick?" "No." The man gently explained Islam to him. For an hour, the two spoke. Then the Muslim said, "Come, let me show you the caliph's home." They arrived at a simple wooden house, unpainted and unadorned. "This is the caliph's residence," he said. The Samarkandi was, well, absolutely stunned. How could the ruler of the greatest empire live here? And then he saw an old man, just calmly repairing a wall with mud. Outraged, he turned to his guide and said, "Why mock me? I asked for the caliph, and you bring me to a builder's home?" "That builder," the guide replied, "is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the commander of the faithful. He was once the richest of men, but once he became caliph, he gave it all up for justice and humility. Go, knock on his door and speak freely. He fears only God." Still in disbelief, the man approached and asked, "By your gods, is this truly the home of the Caliph?" "Yes," Umar replied. "What do you need?" The traveler presented his case, saying, "Your general Qutayba ibn Muslim entered our city without inviting us to Islam, nor did he offer us the choice to pay tribute or defend ourselves. You Muslims claim that such a choice is sacred in your faith. But we were given no such option. He conquered us by surprise." Umar frowned and said, "Our Prophet never allowed us to wrong anyone, even non-Muslims. We are commanded to be just." He then called for pen and parchment, wrote a brief note, sealed it, and handed it to the man, saying, "Give this to Qutayba ibn Muslim." Skeptical and honestly a bit unimpressed by the small piece of paper, the man took it and returned. The priests were, well, honestly shocked by his story, but they instructed him to deliver the letter. Qutayba read it, and, he just froze. It was a command. A judge must be appointed to hear the case between the priests and Qutayba, and whatever the judge decided must be carried out. Immediately, Qutayba summoned a judge named Jami ibn Hadir. A date was set. On that day, the people of Samarkand, the priests, and the commander himself gathered at the mosque. The priests had no real hope. Could a Muslim judge really rule against his own commander? Against a war hero who had never lost a battle? Soon a humble thin man entered the mosque and sat quietly. This was the judge. The priest's heart sank further. Surely this fragile man couldn't stand against a military leader. And from that day forward, the city remained in Islam. Not because it was conquered, but because it was convinced.